All right, this is crazy. All right, I'm gonna slowly just kind of get into it. I imagine there'll be a couple more people coming, but obviously for those who are online, they'll be able to kind of go through with it. You will need your book if you have it out, or whatever copy you have of the book. I will use the Stephanus number, so if you're using a printout or something like that, you can still follow me. My intention today is just obviously to wrap up what hopefully you've already read and get us some things to think about going into the Credo, and then which you may have also already read already. But if not, then certainly that's what we're getting into next. So I'd like to start when I think of the apology. I like to sort of start where I hope you've already gone when it came to reading this, which is imagine a time, or imagine even maybe a situation right now, where you've been accused of something that you feel you didn't do. And many of us approach things differently, all right, about how we handle the attack, right? I was just saying before class that I'm not as strong as Socrates is. Socrates is much stronger than me. And I think there's a sense to which Socrates allows us the ability to sort of ask, how much can we take? Right? How much can we take? How much ignorance can we take? How much disrespect can we take? How much, obviously, punishment can we take? And then ultimately the question is, will we be willing to die, right, over something? I used to ask a question, are you willing to die over anything, right? I used to ask that question. It's kind of hard to ask that question nowadays, quite frankly, because of a lot of reasons, but I try not to ask that question as much, but you can't help but read this and ask yourself, are you willing to die for anything, right? Are you willing to take the ultimate challenge of death? Now, of course, we read it, so we know what it means. We'll get into it. But the apology, as we talked about in a couple of lectures, is an explanation, a defense. Why it is that Miletus, you got it wrong. I got to convince these 500 folk that they should do something with me other than death. And I got some old accusers. I got some younger accusers. I got the people who were growing up under their dads, their uncles, previous leadership, who are now in position to make judgment upon me. I got the old heads, just like Miletus, who was jumping on me. And I'm dealing with all this at one time with these 500 people. And I understand what's going on, right? I get it, because I know my life, Socrates says. I know what I've been doing. I know I've pissed people off. I pissed your children off. I've pissed some of you off. I know. But it's never been intentional. Right? It's never been like I wanted to disrespect you. And actually, if you remember, we'll kind of maybe read a couple lines in here, but he even says, listen, I mean, what sense would that make, right? To actually upset the law. Like, I'm just out here being mean. And then we get to this point, right, because they accuse him of corrupting young people, right? And making them basically smart ASSs. And because Socrates, he traveled, right? And remember, let me see if it's all right. Let's just talk a little bit. Does anybody remember why he began to talk to the poets and the doctors and all that? Why?
The oracle said he was the wisest man.
Right? Imagine, if you woke up one day, we ain't got no oracles, so you got an oracle saying to you, you might want to go get some help. But let's say, your dad, let's say you're a professor, let's say the president, called and said, Alex, you're the smartest woman in America, right? And you might say, thank you, you're almost right, you know what I'm saying? But you say, but I know there's smarter people than me, right? then the only way to figure it out then, because the president ain't going to do it for you, because he's already established you're the smartest. So you figure out, listen, I don't want the pressure of being the smartest in the land. So let me go find some smarter people. So it's not as if I did this to myself. Somebody put this pressure on me, and I'm just out here trying to alleviate the pressure by finding the one person who I know is smarter than me, so I can tell the oracle and all the people who are listening to the oracle that it ain't me. So the process that he went through that eventually pissed so people off is what we call the Socratic method, right? That's the process. That's everything that we've read so far with Euthyphro, a little bit here, not as much here, right? Because here is more of a monologue, although there were some times with Miletus that he went back and forth, right? All right, so the one thing that we should know we get from this reading is an understanding, these last two readings, of the Socratic method. Right? This is a term you see in other classes. You might have already seen them in other classes. So that means it comes from Socrates, and it's certainly a sort of a process of questioning without, a sort of a known, without a known answer. Right? So I don't know the answer. I want to know the answer. Let me go through this process of questioning people who I guess have the answer. And he goes through this process over and over again. And eventually, like I said, by the time we get to the apology, he's done it so much over so many years. He's like 70 years old now, 69 or 70. And, he's getting old, and folk now are ready to put him to death. Socrates is like, listen, I didn't quote no youth. What was the second charge about the gods, right?
Atheism.
Right? He says, I don't even believe in the gods. Socrates is like, what are you talking about? I give love to the gods. I identify with all the gods. And so Socrates was really confused, right? And a certain person you might read like he was actually pissed off and mad, right? But he's really confused. Like, how did you get all of this from what I've been doing? And I think in the first video I sent you, I told you that, if we had went in order that we started to, we'll go back to the pre-Socratics. But you noticed in his reading, he starts saying, listen, you all are confusing me with Anaxagoras. You all are confusing me with the type of people, right, who actually had what we call cosmological arguments. That's an S. Cosmological arguments. Right? So obviously we'll get back to it, but just putting it in context, right? Because this comes up. So to ask questions about, right, whether the sun and the moon and the earth, all that kind of stuff that he says, you say the sun is not as great and all that kind of stuff. So he says, wait a minute, those are cosmological arguments I don't even get involved in. Right? There are people who says, yeah, maybe, the earth is water. Maybe the sun is fire, or even the earth is even fire. Cosmology, what makes up the world? And some of the pre-Socratics believe that the world is all fire, the world is all water, the world is all this is another area, but I might as well put it down here. The world is just matter, right? It's just matter, it's just stuff. Right? Molecules and particles and atoms and all that kind of just stuff. And most of these people, these were the people that did not believe in God. A lot of these cats before me, they're trying to show how the world was created without God. Socrates says, I ain't never made those arguments. I ain't never talked like that. So where you accusing me for not adhering to the guidelines? So ultimately, this whole project is trying to defend himself against what he considers is a bad case. Now, like I said, many of us have been there. And many of us have had to defend ourselves, whether it's something as small as, who took the cookie out the cookie jar, or as big as, who stole something out of a store, or did you rob this, did you hurt him or hurt her? And we've had to make a defense. And in some cases, our defense, our apology, has been purely factual. I wasn't here, I wasn't there, I didn't take item X, I didn't do item B. But as you read this, you know that we're not talking factual ideas. Because Socrates can't deny that he was walking around talking to people. He can't deny that he pissed people off. He can't deny that it upset their parents and the people in charge. He can't deny that even his understanding of wisdom countervails all other people's conversation of wisdom, because he believes the wise person is the person that doesn't know anything. And those who claim to know stuff, y'all ain't wise at all. So at every level, he's upsetting folk. And so a lot of students don't think it's not far-fetched for a dude to get in trouble, especially in such a autocratic democracy. I mean, this is a new democracy, Athens, right? They come from, sort of a dictatorship of a certain level, but they now are created this sort of new democracy, and they don't know how this stuff works yet. This whole 500-person jury, like, how do you get through that? So they don't know that this, but this is where we get democracy from, right? From, Athens, right? So, as we consider what philosophy is, and we consider what the pre-Socratics, and then now with Socrates, offers the discipline or the area of philosophy, I think we have to begin, obviously, with the Socratic method. And I think second, we have to begin with sort of the meaning of life. Not necessarily what is the world, what is the earth, moon, stars, stuff like that. But what's the meaning of life? And in order to get to the meaning of life, Socrates says you have to go through what he says is the process of examining yourself. And so we know his popular phrase is what? About self-examination.
The unexamined life is not worth living.
The unexamined life now, since we are in class, let's just stop here. I think all of you by now have taken logic, if not close to it. What direct inferences? All right, we know this is, you remember, this is an old proposition. So what direct inferences can we make from an old proposition? What else can we say is true if we believe that's true? You might remember logic? Square of opposition. A-E-I-O. And if the O is true, what do we know? Or if you don't remember that, don't worry about it. You remember it? Yeah. Okay. So if this is true, then just what other statement can we say follows or comes from that statement about life and living? Don't change the words, just what else can I get from that statement? Let me ask this question. So, for instance, here, right, would be some, right? Here would be all. Here would be none. So if this was true, then if somebody said, well, no, I don't have to examine anything in order to have meaning in my life. I deny the antecedent. No, I don't have to examine anything in order to have meaning in my life. Socrates said that's not true. So for a philosopher who says, listen, we have friends. It's like, man, I don't feel like thinking. Y'all think too much. All y'all do is want to talk. All y'all do is want to ask questions. I don't even. Socrates is going to say, listen, how else do you come to understand what life is unless you engage in these questions? What kind of life could you possibly lead if you're constantly accepting things as they are, or passively walking through the world, or not reflecting? Is that a good life to Socrates? And not even is it good enough life to Socrates. Socrates says, listen, Melius, he says to him, listen, man, if you want to make up your own punishment, go ahead. He says, because you're about to be in prison and you're about to go to jail and you're about to die. You want to be in prison for the rest of your life? Oh, no, that ain't. I'm good on that. I think I am too. I think if I did something worthy to go to prison for the rest of my life, well, I probably wouldn't do it. But even if they thought I did something worthy, I'd be one of those situations where y'all find out that I either killed myself or had somebody kill me. I can't be in jail for the rest of my life. Socrates says, okay, let's hit the road. Let's go to exile. Go on a run. There was a movie. I saw it this summer. There was two black people, a guy and a girl.
Queen and Slim.
What is it?
Queen and Slim.
Slim. Queen and Slim. Right. Right. I'm glad. Right. Good answer. 2 points. Right. So I watched it. Right. I didn't know what it was. I was watching it, and then they actually did something. Though. It ain't like they were killed. So it's a little bit different. But they were on the run for the rest of their life, and the whole movie was about them on the run. And the thing about being on the run is the very thing happening to them. It's just like when you're on the run, like who can you trust? What kind of life can you lead that has any type of value if A, you're all looking over your shoulder, and B, whoever you talk to could either be a friend or someone who says, I'm about to call the po-pos. Right? And so when I watched that movie, I'm like, this again. I knew I couldn't go to jail for my life, and I can't be on the run for the rest of my life. Because, as soon as I go to 7-Eleven, somebody will be like, you know what I'm saying? Can't talk to nobody, can't go on Facebook, can't do nothing. Socrates says, I can't live that kind of life. So then they get, look, can you just shut up then? How about that? Can you just stop all this stuff? And that's what makes him say, dude, this is my life. I'm a philosopher. Like, you just can't ask me to stop philosophizing. I mean, because then, as he says toward the end, this is what death is. So the quality of life is linked to my ability to live a life that makes some happiness. Right? If it makes me happy to do this, then I do it. Now, does it make him happy? I don't know. What do we know? He says this is a calling, right? This is something that the gods told him to do. So it's not even as if I even want to do this, right? He says this is something that I was meant to do. And so let's just turn real quickly. Let me show you to 23C. Yeah, 23C. So Stephanus numbers 23C. We're going to go up and then go down. So we'll start with that is why. Read a little bit. So 23C is in Charlie. He says, that is what I talk about this issue about wisdom and truth. He says, that is why even now I still go around seeking and investigating in accordance with the God any townsman or foreigner are supposed to be wise. I'm not doing this because I want to get in trouble. I'm not doing this because I even think that it's necessarily a good thing. I'm doing this. This is what I do. This is how I live. This is what makes my life worth living. And whenever someone does not seem so to me wise, I come to the God's aid. God, help me. And help me to help them know that they aren't wise. And because of what? This occupation. This is my job. In Lutheran terms, this is my vocation. I love this. I've had no leisure. I ain't had no fun. Either to do any of the things in the city worth speaking of, or any things of my family. I mean, I got a horrible family relationship. We'll read that in Symposium. I got a horrible relationship with my wife. I got kids that barely like me. I drink too much. I'm overweight. Socrates, like, I ain't had no leisure, man. I kick it with the homies. That's what. Instead, I am in 10,000-fold poverty. Why? Because of the devotion to God. Now, my intro class was reading this last week, and I told them, listen, to do philosophy all the time and not turn it off, you won't have no friends. Right? You got to turn it off. You can't be rational at all times. You got a paper due tomorrow, and party about to jump off tonight, and you's about to study, and everybody in the house is going, everybody in the dorm is going. You don't want to be the only one left in the house, right? The only one left in the dorm and everybody out. So you're going to do the irrational thing, which is go kick it and pray that you can get up in the morning and try to get some last minute study in. Socrates said that's some irrational stuff. And your professor will probably say that was stupid. And you're going to say, yeah, but it's also stupid not having a life. And whatever we do, the distinction between, so all fits under the meaning of life. The distinction between vocation and avocation. The distinction between paideia, I'll explain this in a minute, and technique. So I spoke yesterday with Brian Yount for the freshman convocation. And we're having a conversation with first year students around paideia and technique. Explaining to them, I said, listen, we can get all the skills in the world and ultimately be the worst kind of human being. In a capitalist world, there may or may not be a problem. I just want access to stuff. I want money, power, respect. Those are the keys to life. And in no way, in no conversation do I deny that or make any ethical valuation of that, because probably 8 to 9 out of 10 people believe that. So I'm not going to get booed off no stage. I'm not going to throw no apples at me. Ain't nobody. I'm trying to get my check and get on out. And I realized I like my check, so I'm not going to give up the money. That's why I was saying I hate when folk in wherever Ohio is telling me, you can't be our governor, you're a Marxist. I'm like, shit, I like money on me. You know what I'm saying? You got the wrong dude. But so I don't put moral qualifications on that. So it doesn't matter, right? If you're a business major, you learn all the aspects of entrepreneurship, and you're the best at finding the openings in the market and putting out a product that meets exactly what people's needs are and getting rich. I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at you if you're an accountant. You're a great accountant. You're best in your field and what you do. Counting the money, understand how that money operates and all that. This is so talking all this stuff and things. I ain't mad at you. You're a great physicist, great biologist. We need you, right? Coronavirus. We need the scientists. Sometimes we have to ask ourselves, like, do I do anything else in my life but science? Do I communicate with any other people other than economists? Talking to somebody the other day. She got a job offer. Senior, and she was like, man, a recruiter called me yesterday saying, listen, the word on the street is you got offered a job already. Did you take it? She's like, I didn't know what to tell him, Dr. Bailey. I said, what did you tell him? She's like, I told him the truth. I told him I did. I said, well, no, the truth always set you free, I guess. I don't tell the truth all the time, but I guess. And she said, but they went on to say, well, you know, maybe you can rescind the offer considering the job will start till you graduate, you know. Why don't you apply with us? our opening salary is going to be $15,000 more. The student was like, this business student, they don't do this in philosophy, right? So don't get your eyes too big, But, so then she was like, 15,000. I'm just listening to her, And I said, so what's expected of you for this $15,000 more salary? She said, that's funny she said that. She said they did mention that the average work week is about 60 hours a week. I said, did the other job that you got right now, they talk about your work week? They say, well, no, generally it's like a 9 to 5, unless I pick up like a position in diversity, and if I do something like that, and I work a little bit more, but then that's an extra pay and all that. I said, oh, so they'll pay you extra to work longer. Interesting. She said, yeah. So I told her this story. One of my 2 regrets in life. One was not fighting for my marriage, and 2 is this. At the age of 31, 30 or 31, I was invited to speak at the Xerox Corporation in Virginia for a group of about 300 college students who were on their way to do foreign service. And I was speaking on something justice related, probably, I don't even remember now. But I'm doing my presentation. It's a huge auditorium at the Xerox Corporation facility, and I'm just doing my thing, right? Big audience, whatever. And I did notice at one point 2 people standing in the back door, but I ain't paying attention. I'm talking to 200-300 people. So late that afternoon, there's the whole complex, right? So they got the bar and the restaurant and all this stuff. So I'm sitting at the bar, and 2 men walk up to me. Are you Julius Bailey, right? Yeah. Yeah, we talked to ambassadors. I've got his name too. He just died. I talked to Ambassador so-and-so about you, and you graduated from Howard? I was like, yeah. He said, you went to Harvard too? I said, yeah. He said, wow. He said, man, we listened to your speech out there. He said, first, let me just tell you, you were loud. Hey. He said, but I guess you had to be. It's a big audience, He said, but they didn't have a microphone? I said, yeah, they did. I just didn't use it. He was like, well, yeah, He said, you're loud. Right? So we were walking down the hall, we heard you, and we just turned around like, who the hell is making all that noise? That's what got us to the room. Well, we're glad we got there because we sat there and just watched 200-300 college students with their eyes focused on you for 20-30 minutes. And we looked like, these are college students. Why ain't they fidgeting and doing something, And so he said, can you meet us here in the morning for breakfast? I said, sure, I'm done. I said, I'll leave tomorrow. Have breakfast with us. No problem. So breakfast comes, the next day comes, waiting for them, they come. One was a vice president for Merrill Lynch. The other one was a vice president for Morgan Stanley. And they were there for some kind of conference themselves. Slides over an envelope to me. The guy from Merrill Lynch. The guy from Morgan Stanley. He said, open it up, Julius. Make a long story short, he said, we want you to be our first diversity trainer. This is 2002. Our first diversity trainer for Merrill Lynch. Starting salary $93,000. I look at that number, I'm 30, I'm like, shh. He says, how much you get paid right now? Like 40, 50 grand? I said, I wish I did get paid 50 grand. He said, I like 40, 42. He said, yeah, you should come work for us. I just kept looking at that number like, man, I could buy me some rims, take some trips, me and my girl. But then the philosopher kicked in. I didn't just take the offer. Thank you, God. I didn't even get religious. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. I wish I did that, because then I got the job. And I could be sad later, but I would have said hallelujah at the time. And I turned into a philosopher. First question I asked him, I said, for a salary this big, like, I gotta wear suits every day, don't I? And he was like, well, it's corporate America, yeah, you have to wear suits, you know. I was like, even on a plane when I travel? He said, yeah, you're representing us, you have to wear suits. I was like, yo, suits are uncomfortable on a plane, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh, whatever. Sat there. He was like, well, you can buy you some new suits, Julius, with that money, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, true, I got Nan's suit, you know what I'm saying? But I guess I can buy a couple. Then the question that really stumped the guys, I said, so travel, you talk about like that, training, like, we're talking what? I know business hours are generally like over 40, so what, it's like 50 hours a week or something like that? And then they looked at each other, and I guess they were thinking, so we wish we did work 50 hours. Like, I said, well, you know, especially the weeks you travel, you'll travel a lot. We're probably looking at more like 60 to 65 hours a week. And I sat there, and I said, and again, this is not even trying to negotiate. I just sat there and said, let me understand the logic. I make $42,000 and I work about 14 hours a week. You want me to work 4 times as much and only pay me 2 times more. And they thought I was negotiating. They were like, this guy tried to negotiate, this young guy tried to negotiate with me. Don't you see that number? He said, listen, 3-4 years you do well, you'll quickly be in 6 figures. Like, y'all don't hear me, man. I said, do you know, at that time, this is what I was doing. I said, at that time, I'm a church administrator. I operate a youth mentorship program. I said, I also am like a part-time football coach. I said, I don't have time to do that. And he was like, probably not. I said, I can't do it. Can't do it, sir. Sorry. Going back to Chicago. And I regret it today. I mean, I wish I took it, and then my mom said she's glad I didn't, because I'd probably be an alcoholic. But like, my life has been so much better because I've been able to do something I like, which is teaching. I got no problem with it. But it's the other stuff that I've been able to do, right? Because I don't work all the time, right? And sometimes it don't pay, but it don't matter about it. Sometimes it does, sometimes it don't. But I travel the country, and sometimes I travel the world. I speak to people, meet people. I work with organizations. I've built organizations. I've gotten awards. I might have got Diversity Trainer of the Year and Fortune 500. They may give me a stock option and a plane ride to France. I mean, but they don't do nothing for my vocation. And ultimately, Socrates wants us to ask the question, how do you create meaning? Because for them, if you remember, we're going to kind of wrap this lecture up here. For them, if you remember, he was saying, y'all think y'all hurt me by killing me, don't you? Right? Y'all remember that line in there somewhere toward the end, right? He said, y'all think y'all hurting me. And this is what we say to each other, right? You know, like, you trying to do me bad, like, that shows more about you than it does me. Like, so you as a state want to hurt me out of revenge? That's not of the gods either. And then what's so irrational about y'all, Melitas, is that you think that death is somehow more punishable than a life of exile or a life of just literally shed. He asked him, he said, what makes you think death is so bad? He says, at one level, it could just be, I'm just sleeping forever. And all of us in this room, we enjoy our sleep. You know what I'm saying? I know we like to wake up too sometimes. Sometimes we don't. Like, damn, I woke up too early. But we like our sleep. Socrates says, what if death is just like an endless sleep? He said, maybe after a while it gets boring. He said, but maybe it's another option. Maybe death is a transitional period where I'm about to go hang out with the oracle, hang out with the great gods, hang out with the great people of the past. How can that be a bad thing? He says, I admonish you to think about, if you kill me, I'm gonna be all right. Your life is the one that's still gonna suck. And so, when we think about the apology, moving into credo, we have to ask ourselves, Socrates wasn't afraid to die. He wasn't afraid to die chiefly because he didn't think death was such a sting, right? He didn't think death was such a bad thing, right? He also thought that the only way to live is to live a life that's according to vocation. And if for whatever reason he had to live a life that's antithetical to his vocation, then he figured out he might as well die. Right? And we've thought about this. If I can't do this, then I'd rather not do nothing. This is what I'm meant to do. Unfortunately, there are some people who said, if I can't do this, if I can't be with this person, if I can't do this, then I'd rather die. And they take those things seriously. But metaphorically or ideologically, what kind of life is it if you can't do what you love to do? Now, that was a long story that I gave you. The girl that told me a story about a job. She called me the next day. She said, Professor Bailey, I'm not gonna fill out that application. I'm like, well, you better stack your chips, you know what I'm saying? She was like, no, because stuff that I want to do, like I want to, she's telling me things she want to do outside of the work. And I was like, well, listen. I said, by no means in the world am I rich. I said, but by no means in the world am I broke. And I've been this way at least since 2000. And so, I've never wanted for anything, and I can't do certain things consistently. I might be able to take one trip a year. I can't take 3 or 4, right? But I'm happy. And after Socrates comes Plato, and Plato begins this conversation, we'll talk later, about the importance of happiness under the disposition of living. Socrates is trying to, you got something bigger. But Credo comes in, and boy. So what you're going to read next, another short one. But the way you're going to do this is going to be a little bit different. You're going to read Credo, and then I also gave you the Martin Luther King piece, right? Letter to Birmingham jail. So I think you have a paper or something. I have to look at the schedule, I don't remember, but you should have something coming up soon. But Credo is going to come to Socrates at the jail about a week before the day he's scheduled to be executed. And Credo is going to say, Socrates, you're my boy. I got a way for us to get out of this. He says, man, look, everybody know you my best friend. Everybody know I got means. Remember, if you remember, Socrates offered, I'll give you equivalent to it, not equivalent to $1, but let's say, I give you 1 mina. That's all I can afford. I give you 1 mina. And I guess according to research, 1 mina was equivalent to what, a prisoner of war. Might have to have somebody to pay to get them out of prison. And clearly this ain't a war. If you let a prisoner of war pay 1 mina. Credo was like, listen, I'm going to get a state 30 mina. I need my boy up out of here. Now, I wish we had friends like Credo, right? I know I do. Man, I went to jail and said, well, $50,000 bar. I want my boy to be like, you could have made it $5 million. I'm taking care of him, Dr. Bailey, you getting out of here. I said, that's what Credo was. Credo was a ride or die dude. Credo says, man, look, everybody know I ride with you, everybody know I die with you. I'm gonna pay this fine. Socrates was like, nah, man, because you pay the fine, they're gonna make me shut up. I'm on probation. They went literally probation, what you mean? And being on probation, if I mess up, which I'm gonna do, because this is my vocation, they're gonna throw me back in jail. You're gonna lose your 30 mina. It's not a good idea on me. I ain't gonna shut up. And we just run away, brother. We just run away. And then, like, Credo tells them, they're like, how can I go? The way I always put it when I teach it. He said, how can I go back to the other homies? How can I go back to all the friends in the dorm, all the people in the fraternity or sorority, or all the people on the team? How do I go back to them and say, Socrates still in jail? They look at me like, you his boy. You didn't get him out? So Credo's like, Socrates, please save my reputation. Hear nobody else's. Save your life, save my own reputation. So Credo is just a story of now Socrates got to now give arguments back to Credo about why he can't run. Now, the reason I want you to read it alongside Birmingham jail is because Socrates makes these arguments about upholding the laws of the state. And Socrates claims, you gotta, whatever the state give you, you gotta take it. Right? And you'll see the argument that he makes in that. He says, listen, I'm not gonna tell you the argument you read. We citizens, that's the law, gotta follow the law. Well, Credo asked the same question that kings asked, 2,000 years later. What if the law is unjust? Socrates says you still got to follow it. King says you don't. So, when you read Credo, I want you to watch the arguments Socrates makes to Credo, Credo makes back to Socrates. Then both is short, because the letter to Birmingham jail is short too. You read the letter to Birmingham jail, you see the arguments the king makes against not following unjust laws. And then, like I said, on your Moodle, I got a question about that. So it may not even be due next week. I don't remember when I said it, but just know coming up, you have to look at those two together, right, as an understanding of. And then actually, I want to have dialogue, debate about what do we do about injustice, right? Especially, do we just uphold the law? Do we fight back against the law? How can we shut up? Well, Socrates says, easy. King says, no, you can't. Right? And so, early on, what we're learning here, same thing we learned in the Euthyphro. Socrates is trying to get to understand what justice is, and wants us to begin to think about what is justice. And that's why he gets so pissed off when they're trying to associate him with the the pre-Socratics with people before him, because they're not asking the questions I'm asking. I'm talking about your paideia, your character. They talking about suns and moons and water and universes. And I'm not talking about all that kind of stuff, that metaphysical stuff. Right? That's metaphysical. I'm not talking about that metaphysical stuff. And so as we read Socrates, as we read going to Plato, and I'll throw in a little bit of Aristotle before we go back to the pre-Socratics, you're going to see us trying to get an understanding of happiness, justice, and goodness. Right? And two of them happen in Erythra, right? What is the good? What is the pious? And how is it related to justice? Right? He asked those two questions in Erythra. Right? And then later, and then now he's trying to get to understanding the vocation, life worth living. How do you become happy? Right? Happiness becomes a third principle. Right? Justice, goodness, happiness. Right? If you keep those in mind as we read him, you're able to see how he's totally responding against the pre-Socratics later on. And you also see the thread and how now Plato is being taught. That is these three things. Now, Plato broadens out. Now, Plato gets into metaphysics later, but you don't get it from Socrates. And obviously, Aristotle certainly gets into metaphysics and science and stuff. But that's the apology, right? That's the apology. And for me, it's always an important read because it self-examines. It puts us in the context of ourselves and our universe, or not universe, and our world, community. And for me, hopefully for you, Socrates becomes a sort of a litmus test. What kind of people are we? Again, like I said, I would never tell you anything is bad or good. I just ask us to look at ourselves in the mirror. Ask the freshmen to write a motto. Right? How would you describe yourself on your epitaph? We know his motto. Examine life is not worth living. If I can't do this philosophy thing, I might as well die. And I say this to my mom all the time. My mom, a real good Christian, and my mama always talking about, the world that she hates Donald Trump. Every time his name come up, she gets to crying, hallucinating and all that. I'm gonna shut it down now. Bye, y'all.